Georgia being poised to flip blue for the first time since 1992 is likely because of the hard work of organizations like the New Georgia Project and their commitment to registering voters. Joining us now is New Georgia Project CEO Inse Ufot. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So your organization registered more than 400,000 voters for this election, and that certainly contributed to only 2% of eligible Georgia residents not being registered to vote. What's your plan to get all these voters to turn out again in January? And do you believe that the success in Georgia is because of these new voters or Republicans switching to vote for Joe Biden?
So we've been very clear from the beginning that electoral outcomes in Georgia are determined by one, who shows up to vote, and two, whose votes count or get counted. And many people know that Georgia has a long and a recent history of voter suppression. And so, A, registering voters and making sure that people understand the opportunity and how powerful their vote is, particularly in this moment. And then B, making sure that we do everything that we possibly can to make sure that their votes are counted, that we're able to neutralize and mute the voter suppression tactics that we've seen over the past couple of years. And so I maintain that there was not a lot of ideological shift, that it was the battle of the bases. Who shows up?
You just had more boots on the ground and going actually on election day, or also filling out the early ballots as your contention. So as you know, youth voters contributed 21% of Georgia's votes, the highest percentage of youth voters in the entire country. Also, as you're aware, it can be really difficult to get young people to actually turn out. What was it about this time that worked?
Well, we understood why, right? So it's not that there's not anything about their youth. It's lack of familiarity with the process. It's how we talk about voting. It's the extraordinary hurdles that are placed that people have to clear in order to participate in our process. So we spent a lot of time, and again, not in October, but throughout the year, demystifying the process, giving people the game, giving young people the game, as my staff like to say, but also, thinking about doing civic engagement differently. We had a live stream on the front page of Twitch, which is the streaming platform that gamers prefer, that had 500,000 unique viewers on election day. And so thinking about meeting people where they are, demystifying the process, and helping folks remove barriers, and then understanding the power of their vote.
So you say giving young people the game. I'm curious, give me like the 15-second version of what is it that you say to compel a young voter to go out to the polls?
Well, if you are serious about defund the police, then you need to understand that mayors and city councils are the ones who set police budgets. And so while voting for president is actually really important, voting for mayor and city council is super important if this is your issue, right? And the reason that came up is because we spent this summer in the streets registering young people who had been radicalized by instances where Black folks particularly, but young Black people were being murdered. And there was a summer of racial justice protest, an uprising, if you will. And we knew that, that many of the young people who were showing up and protesting and demonstrating for the first time were not registered to vote. And so we showed up to meet them there. And we went to have conversations because initially some of the responses were, why does voting matter? My vote won't matter. The parties are the same, et cetera. And some of the rhetoric that you often hear from young people about the political process. And so we met them there. We engaged them to have real conversations about the change that they want to see and how to actually bring that change to life.
Now, Georgia has certainly been plagued with voter suppression accusations for years. How would you say that this election went, and what is your response to Republicans who are claiming without evidence that there have been widespread allegations of voter irregularities, issues with voting machines, and poll watcher access?
Well, you just said it, without evidence. And so I think that it's important when we are teaching young people and new Americans about misinformation and disinformation, there are a couple of things that we, encourage and teach people to interrogate. So we don't want to be, unwitting amplifiers of misinformation and disinformation when we know that there is not any evidence. And let's be clear, there's no one in Georgia who was looking for voter suppression or voter fraud more than our sort of ecosystem of democracy defenders and civil rights and voting rights activists. We had up to 4,500 volunteers throughout early voting and on election day, and there's simply no evidence of it. And so I refuse to treat it like that's credible.
Now, you've been at the helm of New Georgia Project for 7 years now. Are there specific inflection points these past 7 years that have helped your organization register voters? And do you believe, if the state does in fact go blue, that this is a lasting coalition and not just a blip on the radar?
Absolutely. I think that Georgia state legislators refusing over and over and over again to expand Medicare, and people realizing how cruel it is, particularly at a time where 80% of the people who've been hospitalized due to COVID are people of color. Half the people who died are people of color, and that COVID related illnesses and deaths and the contraction rate are on the rise, and most Georgians still don't have access to quality, affordable healthcare, is a particular kind of meanness, evil that folks are realizing and having to contend with in this moment of quarantine. And because we've been having millions of conversations with Georgians each year, folks are recognizing that the one thing that we can do, one of the easiest things that we can do to bring about that particular change, is to change the people in the state legislature who claim to be doing work in our interest and in the interest of our families. But many Georgians, again, find themselves, we had a president who was telling us to drink bleach, a governor who refused to shut down the state until he absolutely didn't have any choice. And Georgia was one of the first states, if not the first state, to open up early. And again, we are continuing to see death. So the life and death, the stakes feel very high in this particular election. And again, I think that there's a recognition that voting and voting to elect champions, or at least elect people who don't do harm to our communities, is one of the easiest things that we can do to protect ourselves.
Inse, do you think that the political future is in the cards for you?
Me? No, I'm an organizer. Listen, I'm a person of the people. I love the idea that what we do is based out of love, right? Love for ourselves, love for our families, love for our communities. And I want to work with people to build power so that we can win and then defend those wins beyond one election cycle. And running for office is hard. And
so is organizing.
Organizing gets the goods.
All right. Inse Ufot from the New Georgia Project, our thanks to you for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.